And we are live on YouTube. And thank you for joining the Intentional Talk Radio Network here for part 5 of the It's Time to Tell the Truth series. I'm your host, Kenny Hendrix, with my co-host, Colette Williams. We will be getting started very shortly. And with the introduction, let's go back to Colette Williams.
All right. Thank you very much. I certainly hope that you can hear me now. We are right here on the Intentional Talk Radio Network. This is part 5 of It's Time to Tell the Truth. And that comes with the hard truth. Telling the truth comes in several shapes, sizes, and colors. We've got a panel who will be discussing the R's, the re. That is repair, that is reposition, refocus, revitalize, rebuild, and reunite. And there are reasons for that. That's part of why it's time to tell the truth. Because for far too long, we've been living the lie. We've been living the lie. And it has been written about for decades. And we've got to stop telling the fallacy, which keeps us oppressed. We are our own oppressor. So now we're going to tell the truth about what's going on. We've got a panel of individuals who will talk to us about this and why it's so important to tell the truth. This evening, we will summarize, and we will also create a call to action. And this call to action is going to involve quite a few individuals, those who have no fear in righting the wrongs, those who have no fear in getting out and not only protesting, but sitting at the table with those who are decision makers, who make decisions about us, about our lives. They make decisions about us, and we deal with the consequences later. So we're ready, we are able, and we're making sure that everyone has the information, that everyone can make the decision to get on board or get off. It's time. It is time to tell the truth. For too many years, for too many decades, for too many centuries, we continue to muddle along and wait for someone else to do it for us and wait for someone to give us permission. Stop waiting on permission. Stop waiting for someone else to create your own destiny. Stop waiting for someone to tell you to put one foot in front of the other. Stop waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to think. Stop waiting. It's time to tell the truth. And that's what this is about. It's time to tell the truth. And we are going to get started. Reverend James Tucker is here with us now, and he's going to get us started by giving us a prayer, leading us off with prayer this evening.
Yeah, but another thing, I'm not a pastor, but I can certainly pray.
Okay, well, James Turkneck was supposed to bring our prayer, but I see Dr. James Tucker. Are you ready for that, Dr. Tucker? We've got.
I'll stay ready for anything.
Okay, we have James Tucker and we have James Turkneck, Dr. James Turkneck and Dr. James Tucker.
If you had him, let him do it. The Reverend, if you got a Reverend, let him do it.
The Reverend has not. He, for some reason, he dropped off, and everyone is having some kind of technical issue. Our previous show had technical issues. We had technical issues yesterday, and the technical issues are all over the place. Ever since Facebook decided to do what they did and the whistleblower did what she did, everything has just gone to the you-know-whats. So Everybody's got issues.
Okay, I'll pray. Dear God, thank you for Intentional Talk Radio Show. Thank you for the host. Thank you for the participants on this show tonight. Dear God, lead us and guide us as we prepare to discuss the issues in power. Just help us to come together, unite, and work together to solve the problem that we face as a race. Dear God, we need you tonight. We need you every day. So, dear God, we ask you tonight to bless this show. And dear God, let it be productive and continue to bless us as a group as we in this fight for justice, equality, and we just need you, dear God. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. And here's James Turkneck right here.
Hello. God bless you.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank
Good.
you.
Very good. Very good. Well, we are going to get started. Kenny Hendrix is going to bring us in with a few words about each of the panelists. We're still missing a few of them, and I'm assuming that they will be here momentarily, but we are going to get started. We do have a very, very full show this afternoon, and we want to get started because we don't want to lose any time. We've already lost 400 years. We don't want to lose any more time. We don't want to lose any more time. So Kenny Hendrix, we've got Dr. Zarif with us. We've got Professor Amos Jones. We've got Dr. James Tucker, and we've got Reverend James Turkneck. So let's get started with them.
And before I start the introductions, I just wanted to say a couple of things. As Dr. George Bell, who has the program before this, always says, we are living in perilous times and the principles of acceleration are upon us. We are living in very, very perilous times. If you look at what's going on in Southern California and Northern California with the homeless population, it is devastating. It's tragic what's going on out there. Something else I just found by accident on YouTube in the past couple of days is Kensington, Philadelphia. And if you look up Kensington, Philadelphia on YouTube, you will see zombies. I mean, these people are zombies, drugged out, standing on the street. They are standing in front of the police station, drugged out. There's homelessness, there's trash, there's despair everywhere. Take a look at that. And it got to the point I had to turn it off. It is very disturbing. So we are living in some very, very perilous times. And I think it's very apropos that we are having this discussion right now because our community is still at the bottom. And we need to really, really talk about how we begin to make the appropriate changes. And with all that being said, I'd like to go ahead and start the introduction. I'm going to go ahead and start with Professor Amos Jones. Amos Jones is a lawyer and a legal scholar in Washington, D.C. He's a widely published authority on the law of racial relations and constitutional rights and has been a public supporter of reparations all his life. He has advocated for them as a columnist for the Harvard Law Record in 2006 and as a presenter at the International Reparations Symposium at the University of Edinburgh in 2015. As a top-rated practitioner, he has prosecuted numerous civil rights actions, including against governmental agencies. He received his bachelor's degree in political science cum laude from Emory University in 2000, his Master of Science from the Columbia University Graduate School of Journalism in 2003, and his Doctor of Law degree from Harvard University in 2006. And in 2006 and 2007, he was a Fulbright visiting scholar at Melbourne, and in the fall of 2015 was an academic advisor to the Faculty of Law at Oxford. Next, we have Dr. James Tucker. Dr. James Tucker was born in New Madrid, Missouri, and began his crusade for justice and equality while earning an undergraduate degree in history and political science from Rust College in Holly Springs, Mississippi. Upon graduation, he enlisted in the Army and served 3 years on active duty at Fort Carson, Colorado. He also served 17 years in the Colorado Army National Guard. In 1985, he received his master's degree in counseling and student development from Tuskegee University in Tuskegee, Alabama. In 1991, James Tucker served in the Gulf War as a legal specialist with the 217th Medical Battalion. In 1995, he retired from the Colorado Army National Guard as a decorated war veteran who received 3 Bronze Stars, and he taught social studies at Harrison High School for 24 years. We have the Reverend James Turkneck. Reverend Turkneck is a D.W. Carter High School graduate who grew up in Dallas. At 18, he enlisted in the Army, serving 2 tours overseas in Korea. During his time in the Army, he served as, and I read this before, and this is really impressive, as artilleryman chief, NBC chief, Special Weapons Chief, Unit Police Chief, Supply Chief, Ammo Drivers Chief, Drill Sergeant, Staff Sergeant, and Equal Opportunity Representative for his company. Returning home in 1991, he became a licensed minister and an ordained pastor in 1993, and in 1997 consecrated to the office of bishop and apostle. He has pastored for over 25 years, and during his professional career, he worked as an agent and president of Atlanta Life Insurance Agency and became a licensed coach for business and life transformation in 2015. We also have Dr. Fareed Zarif. Dr. Zarif is a nationally recognized dietary nutrition activist and human nutrition scientist. He's the author of over 250 articles, including recent peer-reviewed articles explaining eating for systemic optimality. And as his work as an educator, spokesman, and critic, he's attracted the attention of superstars like Stevie Wonder, Anita Baker, Bobby Womack, Raphael Sadiq, and more. He's also the author of What to Eat and What You Should Not Eat. What You Should Eat and When You Should Eat It. I correct myself. Dr. Zarif has conducted more than 1,000 media interviews over the past decade, including guest appearances on KTLA News and the Fox News Channel. He studied at Western University School of Medicine, St. Luke's University School of Medicine, graduating with a Doctor of Philosophy in Human Nutrition and Dietetics, and completing his dietetic training at the Center for Surgical Treatment of Obesity, Hawaiian Gardens, California. And I think that's it. And we have one more guest who's going to be joining shortly. She is not here yet. Do I see?
Yes, we've got Faith Fox coming on. We've got
Okay.
Dr. Maurice Franklin, who will be coming on. So we've got a few more, and I'm assuming that Dr. James Tucker is having technical difficulties because he dropped off. But as I said, we're not going to let the technical difficulties deter us. We're not going to let that get in the way of what we are going to, what we're going to do today. We're going to be productive. We're not going to be reactive. We're going to be proactive, and we're going to get this show on the road. And one of the things that I'd like to start with, Professor Amos Jones, I love hearing him talk. I love hearing Dr. Zarif talk. The panel here is made up of what I consider to be the real orators, the people who can really bring it, the ones who are the true leaders, the ones who really, really, really have their fingers and toes and heart and head on the pulse of what's going on in our communities. I'd like to start with Professor, and this is Professor Attorney Amos Jones, Attorney Professor Amos Jones. Professor, how are you?
I'm fine. Good evening. Thank you for having us back.
Of course, absolutely, absolutely. My first question to you, Professor, I've listened to you talk for some time now, and I never, ever leave the conversation without thinking, man, how come everybody can't do this? Okay, and I guess everybody can't be brilliant. That's all I have to say. But one of the things that I will say about us right here at Intentional Talk Radio, here's the brilliant panel right now. All of you, all of you, all of us. So it is a pleasure to have all of you. Professor, and I'm gonna cut to it because I've got a whole lot of stuff in between this question and others. What is going on in the Black community? We are, as Kenny Hendrix just said, he's looking at what has happened in Philadelphia. Someone was in LA a few weeks ago, about a month ago, and he sent me an email and he said, unfortunately, this is not the same LA that I've known. He said, it looks like a third world country. And it does. It absolutely does. And everybody turns the blame on something else, not someone else, but something else. And it's unfortunate that we are still struggling. We've had Danny Glover and Nate Williams on, and they talked about the prison pipeline. Nate Williams has spent some time in prison, and they talked about how these things have gone on. But for decades, we've been talking about this. Why are we still here and we're not doing anything about it?
Well, we have two strikes against us, two big strikes historically. One is that for hundreds of years, it was illegal to teach most of us to read or write. So we have a deficit of information and of the kind of self-determination and liberation that come from knowing things. That's one thing. And then just at the moment when we were becoming more able to access those instrumentalities of progress, which, whether it was an industrial economy or a knowledge economy, hinged on the ability to think and know and the security that comes from that. Just at that moment in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, there were the tectonic shifts in general culture of things like desegregation, but then there was also the free love and rock and roll, sex, drugs, rock and roll. And we gained our freedom at a time that was very precarious in just global history. And so we were here and doing a very good job until they shot Dr. King in the face and bumped off a bunch of other people through COINTELPRO. So that's the other strike against us. No other group has a concerted, well-funded government program to destroy the entire community by decapitating the most effective leadership in the history of mankind that liberated us. That's part of the big problem that we face. So we're staggering under the blow of a lack of prophetic leadership, and prophetic simply not screaming inflammatory truths, but actually figuring out problems 30 years before everybody else and working through them the way Dr. Wyatt T. Walker, Dr. Charles Hamilton Houston, and Dr. Martin Luther King and a bunch of others did. Yesterday, I was at the March on Washington Film Festival finale here in Washington, and there was a wonderful tribute to Polly Murray, a leading woman. And she wasn't forgotten. Black people always knew what a great force she was for Black people's rights and women's rights at the same time, without getting in the way of either of those movements, quite frankly, which was part of her special genius. She became the first Black woman ordained to the Episcopal ministry in the Episcopal Church in the USA in 1977. But she was a big factor in making sure the Civil Rights Act made sense, that there was a decent enough coalition to get it through bipartisan with virtually all white men in the Senate. And that Civil Rights Act of 64, which is why we have employment discrimination protections, is really better than most of the constitutional jurisprudence the Supreme Court has come out with in terms of its reliability and protecting it. We haven't done anything like the Civil Rights Act of 64 since Dr. King got bumped off. And I say he got bumped off because the head of our FBI was having people write letters to try to convince Dr. King to commit suicide after he was surveyed unfairly. So the fact of the matter is that didn't work. So somehow, some other way, he got knocked at 39 years old and left those 4 children without a father and a wife without a husband. So now the problem is, after all of that happened, the cities burned, and then suddenly we were integrated into these white institutions. Now, Harriet Tubman understood the Lord in liberation more than 100 years before liberation theology was made up. Okay, but now we have outsourced the stewardship of our community financially, intellectually, and now in some respects, even culturally, to the people who were the oppressors for a long time. And that's why we're so mixed up and stuck. And unfortunately, there's blame to go around within the community, but also the people who made sure that there would never be sensible Black leadership to arise and to have a national platform and following the way Dr. King and his allies, who were very loyal to him, were willing to do. Wyatt T. Walker, the chief of staff for Dr. King, understood the media before anybody else in the political space. That's why he wore a clerical collar, which Baptists don't do, and he was Baptist when he knew he was going to be arrested. He knew cameras would roll in the new era of TV. If there had been no TV, there would have been no Selma, there would have been no Birmingham 16th Street Baptist, there would have been none of that legend. They were media masters before the white people. But now we follow. We let MSNBC tell us who we're supposed to be followed and thinking, and we let Harvard pick the professors we gonna listen to And
Right.
now one of my favorite
That's right.
people, Randall Kennedy,
Right.
has a new series of essays where he was wrong on a bunch of things.
Right.
I think the world of Randall Kennedy. But why don't we put some people up in there who have a record of being right all the time for 30 or 40 years? Because we have them. But there are conspiracies of silence and of climbing and wanting to be the HNIC getting in the way of our progress. So we
Right.
got it coming from within the community and from without.
Out. Yes. Yes. You're absolutely right. And I agree. I completely agree. And just as you said, coming from within the community and outside of the community, we have those who not only ride the fence, but those who don't even look back. Those who just really think that that's old, that's over with, that's gone. So how are we going to begin to repair? There's so much to repair. That's one of the reasons this program is about repair. It's about reposition, revitalize. It's about refocus,
Right.
rebuild, reunite. So in order for us to get there, we have to come together and have an understanding. We have to have a cohesive relationship with our people. And unfortunately, at this point, we don't. We were on another show previous to this one with another gentleman, and I'm listening to all of the things this medical doctor is talking about, and I'm really just quite taken with all of his thoughts on the vaccine and how people should address this, whether they get the vaccine or whether they don't get the vaccine. It's their choice. And when you stop and think about the choices that people have, oftentimes they have to be coerced. Most of the time they have to be coerced. Most of the time they have to give something, they have to be given something that's going to encourage them or drive them to think that they've got to go this way, they've got to get the vaccine, they've got to think this way, they've got to do that. And that's where we are. That's where we are as a community. If somebody doesn't step up and tell people how to think, the direction to go in, it ain't gonna happen. And for me, the greatest example of that is what happened last year and where we are 1 year later. Where we are 1 year later. And I'm not going to get on I'm not going to call it a soapbox. I'm going to call it a keg of dynamite. I'm not going to stand up there. However, I'm very, very pissed off. And I was going to say it another way, but I'm going to keep that part to myself. I'm extremely pissed off about what happened to the Haitian people. And Black folks are sitting back going, ooh, yeah. I don't see anybody there at the border. I saw the politicians during a photo op. I saw that. I did see that. I see that the NAACP is asking for money. I see that. I see that there are sparse people in different places doing different things. I see that. But I also see people going online, going in front of the camera and saying, yeah, what's happening to those people is horrible, but you can't compare it to the Afghans because we owe the Afghans a debt. So before I get on that box, I'm going to go right over to Dr. Zarif. Dr. Zarif, how are you? You're muted. You're still muted.
I was
There
just
you go.
talking away.
There you
Yeah, I was really great to be here with all you incredible,
welcome.
wonderful people. Thank you very much.
Very good.
I'm just
So-
realizing that the guy with the big arms is actually Kenny Hendrix that I have on the. I'm like, who is that brother, man? Those arms got to be a 26.
Don't tell him that. Don't.
I never measured them, so.
Man, go ahead, brother, man. That's great. Well, I'm happy to be here. I think one of the things that stick out, and I really agree very much with Professor Jones. I mean, he made some really incredible, points as to why we are repeating this whole thing over. We have the I think some propensity to repeat and to forget very rapidly. I think one of the things that is very important is organization. One of the things that I see that since I've been on this earth is the hiding behind the science of agnotology. Now, agnotology is the word that means ignorance. It's the study of ignorance. And as long as that is spread amongst us, or we people, original people, Negroes, colored people, whatever, that we tend to not focus on one thing. It's just like in nutrition science. If you have all of these things, what are vitamins, what are minerals, what is dystonia, what is fibromyalgia, you got all of this stuff rolling at you. It's some of the worst days that I've ever sat on was because it was really just everything was dispersed, split up, divided. And it's the same thing with us. We're so divided. You was asking about the people, the Haitians. It's not because we don't love or care about what's happening. We're so distracted in all of these areas. So the social networks are doing a great job. Television is doing a great job. They're bringing the basketball back. All of these are distractions. And as long as we succumb to those distractions, we'll continue to repeat these things because there's no way for us to learn from them when we're distracted with something that's going to continue to secrete the large amounts of dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins, all your feel-good hormones. And that's what we go for. We're not really looking for a change. Everybody, I think, wants a change as long as you don't change them.
Yes, absolutely. As long as you don't change them, you're absolutely right.
As I said, yeah, I'm for change. You go first.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
True.
And one of the things that we have talked about since your last visit to ITRN, Dr. Zarif, was the identity.
Oh yeah.
That we are lacking because we have trouble identifying with who we are.
Absolutely. I think that the biggest problem with that, I don't know, Professor Jones, tell me where you are with this. I looked at every name, right? African American, you name all those names. Even I don't even remember hearing African American until I heard Jesse Jackson speak. What was that, 1976 or something like that? Mm-hmm. All of these names, but what they do is they associate every name that we have is associated with failure. Yeah. Every name that we have. I love the idea of Black and how we can take that and philosophize with it. I love the idea of Afrocentric or, those names, not bad at all. But when they're usually taught by Europeans, so just like being taught African history by a European, it's going to come out skewed. And I think that that's one of the things that I know what we use in my family. We call each other original. I tell my children, you are the original man. You are the original woman. And this doesn't come with whatever they say. They know that we were here first. And that also means that we have a big backpack on our backs to carry a lot of responsibility to show the best examples for that. To know that we're brilliant, that we're creative, we're productive, and so forth. So that's what I go with. I'm not really, I've never, even when I was playing ball and somebody really makes me upset, I never used the N-word, ever, never. And we never used it in my house. We don't do it. But that has a lot to do with what we feel about ourselves. If you want to really change the nation, you got to start with each individual and then the community and build out. Other than that, you see, it doesn't have any value when you don't love you. You don't care. It's like I'm looking at the Lakers, I don't care.
Yes.
And that's where they want us to stay ignorant and to be vague about major things in our lives, like major points in our lives.
Right. And I'm glad that you said that. I'm going to turn this over to Kenny Hendrix, but if you got the information, and one of the things that I want to recap about this series is the first segment was Black Men in White Coats.
Yeah, I remember.
The second was Juneteenth Tulsa,
Mhm,
reparations and critical race theory.
mhm.
The third was rap, hip hop. I'm sorry, the third was COVID-19, the vaccine. And the fourth was rap, hip hop, destruction, just entertainment for the money. Which is it?
Mm.
And I'm now seeing things where it's being written that rap and hip hop have really and truly, honestly, it's time to tell the truth. It's destroyed the Black community. It has destroyed the Black family. Tell the truth about it,
Mhm.
because it has. It has destroyed us as a people. And that is a major destruction, and a major distraction, because Black folks, when they've got that going on, they can't think of anything else. They don't even want you to talk to them because they've got that stuff going on.
And you cannot
it-
listen to that
You cannot
3
listen to
hours a
that
day,
and
10 hours a
think.
day, and not
Right.
have a negative effect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Go ahead, Kenny Hendrix.
And that's a perfect segue, because that's what my next question is. And I'm going to give this question to Reverend James Turknett on rap and hip hop. But before I do that, I want to show you a couple of things on the screen I'm going to bring up. This was headline a couple of days ago. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Fight erupts on stage during a Boosie Badass concert. Okay. So here they are trying to give a concert, and a fight breaks out on stage. So they have to cancel the entire concert because they're fighting on stage.
Wow.
Okay. When we were coming up, I never saw Sly Stone and Smokey Robinson get into a fight, or David Ruffin and Aretha Franklin. People did not get into fights. Now, the second thing I want to show you is this particular stat. And those of you that were on the program where we talked about rap and hip hop have seen this. This is the list of hip hop artists killed. If you go down this, pay attention to this column here on the right, cause of death. And as you go down, and as you scroll down, shot and killed, shot and killed, shot and killed, shot and run over, shot and killed, shot and killed, shot and killed, beaten, then shot, stabbed to death, shot and killed, shot and killed, shot and killed. All this is all the way through past Nipsey Hussle and the guys in the past few years. Now, this is a very, very common occurrence. Hip hop rappers being killed daily, weekly, monthly, all the time. And as Colette just talked about, how has that affected our community? So what I'd like to hear from you, Reverend Turknett, is your opinions on the effects. Are we overblowing this, or is this really something? And what can we do about it? You have to unmute.
Yes, thank you so much. And I'm glad you addressed me with this particular question. And yes, definitely affecting us, rap and hip hop. And the reason why I appreciate it, because I've worked with a numerous amount of rappers and hip hop artists. And believe it or not, we have a lot of them that are making changes. And I can give you some names in particular. I just talked to Sugar T from E40 and the Click. That's the brother and sister rap group out of the Bay Area. I think one of the largest brother and sister rap groups, Platinum, Gold. And she's now changed. She's changed, and we've got some others that are making changes. I've dealt with quite a few of them, and I deal with a lot of them in our area, Dallas, Texas. One of the young ladies that I mentored from the streets, because I have my face out there in the streets, and I meet with a lot of these people a lot of times. And so one of the young ladies we have to get on her feet, she's called herself Texas #1 publicist. And so she meets with a lot of these rappers and work with them. And I tell her, hey, what are these guys doing to help people? Are you helping people like we help you to get on your feet? Are you guys putting out bad stuff? And so I think she finally just caught the message. Matter of fact, she just gave me a phone call and said, I'm quitting this. I'm setting it down. And the reason why she decided to quit, in New York, supposedly people that may have been associated with 50 Cent, people pulled guns on her. She took one of the artists from Houston, Rap-A-Lot, people there. And I don't know, they thought it was some other rapper and one of those deals. And a lot of the artists that she had here getting killed one by one. We just had one named Mo3 that got, which was one of her artists that got killed. And this is happening over and over. So now she's out mentoring. She's now like myself. She's a coach. I coached her for a long period of time. Now she's out coaching, and we it's a challenge that we have. The hip hop is the voice of our people today. I'm not saying that to make anyone upset. You got to understand, I'm a minister, but I have to be honest. The church as a whole does not have the voice of the young people. We haven't had the voice of the young people. Now, is it possible that we can get the voice or we can have a voice? Sure, all things are possible. But the people who have the voice of young people are the rap and the hip hop culture. And until we can communicate and get on the ground and get in the boots and get down with these people, and I go into these schools and I go into the streets. And as I heard earlier, Professor Jones was saying, and I heard you say earlier, Kenny, about all the homeless people, interviewing these guys, finding out what some of the problems, why are you guys on the streets? And one of the guys that came into our program made a homeless shelter. He says, this is what the program is. Because we multiplied overnight, having over 1,000 homeless people down in the city of Dallas. What the problem? He says, these guys are okay. Then they go to this church program and they see a doctor. And they go in there and give them an address, and then they get shot up with the needle and they come out like zombies. And you got to get a check. So now they get checks every month. They have an address because of a church program that they went into. And now they're walking zombies all downtown everywhere. And they're just like, and it's just growing and growing. And so we, if we truly about our culture, if you notice, and I want to honor all of the great minds and thinkers that are on the broadcast tonight. If we would forget about our titles and forget about ourselves. And I had to forget that long time ago when they, honored me and I received my doctorate in ministry, that the titles don't mean anything if we're not on the ground with our boots. In order to change this problem, we have to be on the ground. But first of all, we have to have a change because within our hearts in order to reach this community. I don't really have a problem. We're right now preparing a tremendous movement to work with the hip hop community. And I'm into politics, and I just ran for Dallas City Council. I'm preparing to run for a higher office. And so I'm working with the publicists now, preparing to work with the rappers. And we want to talk to these young men, give them a vision, see if it utilizes people to get people into voting, but also change their mind in the same perspective. We've got to be so tied up in what we believe in that they can't change us. One of our problems is we get in, we get involved, but we get changed. Money seems to change people. And I think a lot of our religious institutions have changed. A lot of our business institutions have changed, and we find ourselves changing when money is involved. But I don't care how much money these people are making. You have to decree and have a mind not to change and to get out there and make a difference. This is where my mind is right now. I believe that I am the change. I believe that I am the future. I'm going this week to Detroit, Michigan, Mary Grove College there. The Ray of Hope have took over Mary Grove College. And these are Blacks, young Black people. And I'm going to talk to these young Black people about change and talk to these young Black people and train these young Black people about making a difference. And then at weekend, I go to Pontiac to go to a church for a prophetic conference. I believe that we are the voice of right now. I am the voice of right now. You know, I'm not waiting for them to open a door for me. I am the door. I open the door. I'm tired as heck getting on here. I've had about an hour or two of sleep, but my mindset is to get out and to make that change. This is the only thing we can do. Now, the best thing that we can do is come together. I think different. I love the point of views I hear from Dr. Zarif, Professor Jones, Kenny, yourself, and I'm sure the others. We've got to come together because this is the main thing that they tell me on the streets. They say, I call him Chief. How you doing, Chief? I heard, I say, how you doing, champion? How you doing, coach? I speak great things over our young men. They pull their pants up. They start acting different. I said, why do you pull your pants up? They say, because we believe in old school. Sometimes they call me OG. We believe in old school. We respect. We've got to go back out there and get to communicating with our people. We can talk about it, but until we can be about it, we can't make a change. And we have very few people who know how to get out there and get in the midst and make that change. I have to get out there. I'm not afraid because they're all my children. And so I have to get out there. And so I want to get out there. I want to help more. I'm thankful that Yolanda Collette has invited us on this program. Kenny, you guys are allowing us the opportunity to be on this program. We've got to get out there and make a change. Yes, these institutions, I'm having to cut a contract with an institution now. I'm not a vaccinated person, but these institutions, this particular institution I'm associated with has received $500 million. And even though I'm a contractor in business, they want everybody to be vaccinated. It's time to get out. So, hey, my cut ties. It's not about money right now. It's about change. Who's going to get out there? Who's going to be willing to get on the ground and make the change? We can do all of the talk. We can't wait on the religion, the Baptist, the Methodist, the whoever. My grandfather was an AME pastor. He built several Johnson Chapel's AME churches. But we've got to get out there and be the move of today. I'm ready. And I'm ready to get in and join in with people that are ready. And I keep hearing Black men talk about they're ready, but they won't join together. And this is what the young people are saying. You want us guys to follow y'all, but y'all won't join together. You know what I say to them, young bloods? I agree. I understand you. We're asking you to make some changes, but we're not willing to submit. We're not willing to humble ourselves and show you guys how to work together. Until we humble ourselves and come together, we cannot bring a revival of change amongst our young community or our communities or change the people of old. We're going to have to come together on one accord.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Right. Kenny Hendrix.
Yeah, and the next, let's bring in Dr. James Tucker on this one. And I think this is very apropos. Are you there, Doctor?
I'm here.
Okay, couldn't see you. Okay, great. If you've been keeping up with the news, and of course, with all the things that have been going on since Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and everything like that, and a lot of places around the country, a lot of police departments and municipalities are trying to make changes. Police reform, we all know about police reform and things like that. Some of these municipalities, some of these law enforcement agencies are having a hard time bringing new recruits in. People don't want to join these police departments. So my question is two parts. First of all, is that what's your opinion on why people don't want to join? I have my opinions on why people don't want to join. I think.
Can you talk a little louder, please? I got
yeah. Is this better?
Yeah, I can hear you better.
Okay. I think people don't want to join because they're not going to have carte blanche to do whatever they want anymore. And the second thing is, my second part of my question is, should young Black people, young Black men and women start joining the police forces in force, in droves? My opinion is that they should. They need to get into these police agencies and begin to police our own neighborhoods and begin to make changes from the inside out, because you can't stand outside and protest all your life. You're not going to make changes like that. Maybe some changes, but not the changes that we need. So I'd like to get your opinion on what you think about that.
You wouldn't believe my internet is unstable and I can't hear you that well, but if you can repeat your question one more time, and hopefully I got a better internet connection, but I don't understand why I'm paying all this money and can't get good internet connections.
Yeah, I have some problems like that. Just basically, it's about the law enforcement agencies around the country not being able to find new recruits, people not wanting to join law enforcement agencies. And these are openings that young Black people can be taking. Did you get that?
Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes,
we can hear you. Yes.
You know, I live in the city of St. Louis, Missouri, and we're in a unique city because even the mayor, she protests, and they had a press conference on the death penalty, and she's against that. But to make a long story short, in the city of St. Louis, we have two police associations, one for Black and one for white. And just from that alone, young people clearly understand that the policemen are not our friends, and they do not want to be a part of that. You know, they tell me, like the Reverend just got through saying, you know, when you're on the street with the brothers, they'll tell you what's going on. And, you know, they tell me, they said it's a YOLO, you know, you only live once. We're not going to live and die the way you old folks did. You guys have got to change the way you do business and also communicate with our people. So to make a long story short about the police department, it's going to be difficult because the young people do not trust the police. They do not trust the pastors. They do not trust people in these different organizations. And so therefore, it is going to be up to us, not just talking about it. It's going to be up to us to create programs that is going to solve our problems, identify the, you know, the programs and make it happen. For an example, what we're talking about is not only happening in the United States of America, it's happening in South America, Caribbean, Africa. Youth violence is an issue all over the world. In fact, we have a webinar coming up, Transatlantic Partnership, on November 18th and 19th, where we plan to address those issues, have experts on talking about how we can solve the problem of violence in our community, not only, you know, mainly in Africa and South America and also in the Caribbean. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's just a quick overview of the fact that young people don't trust the police.
Can I add on to there?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, we have a plan that we call YES, and it's for young people education and also seniors. And what I think that we could definitely do, and this is what I'm proposing, and I went to the Dallas Black Police Union and the white, and I'm asking them particularly to put police back in the schools. The reason why I'm doing it, we had a lot of deaths and murders. I understand we have Ku Klux Klan still tied into the police force all across America and the world.
America.
I understand that. So I want the officers to go in there, get to know the kids, build a relationship, number one. And then I want the youth to get to know the officers, number two. Then as we have them in there, I want them not only to be comfortable, but I want to recruit people from our young people to become police officers. I want to put academies in the junior highs and in the high schools that we can begin to recruit officers that look like us. And then we can put these officers in our neighborhoods because they know Junior and they know Bebe and they know the ways of our community.
Right. Yeah.
And so and we've got to do something because like we said earlier, rap has messed things up. Yeah, that Boosie situation, they took him off of the tour. I've been studying that. I was trying to reach Boosie some years ago through one of the business sponsors of him, and I wasn't able to get to him.
Let me interject something, please. The question was, I was talking and you interrupted, and that's where we run into the problem too. And
Wait, no.
Let me say this, because I did not finish. And what he's talking about, you know what I mean, I can add more to it.
Okay, well,
The
Dr.
Lincoln
Tucker,
University,
Dr.
let me say
Tucker.
this, Lincoln University has a program where they actually train African Americans to become police officers.
Okay, Dr. Tucker.
Yes,
No,
ma'am.
James Turknick did not interrupt. He actually, you had finished and he went on. So we're not going to go back and forth like that. So Reverend Turknick.
Yes.
Okay. Were you finished? James Tucker,
Yes.
were you finished? Okay. James Tucker, were you finished?
I like to say this, we got to be very, very careful in terms of how we encourage our young people to act with the police, number one. Our young people know that the police, you can't trust most policemen. So therefore, we got to create a system. If we are serious about leadership, we've got to create a system to identify the Ku Klux Klan members, not only in the police department, in the courtroom, everywhere else, and make sure those individuals are not a part of the system that is making rules for us. And that's the legislators too. And we're not willing to do that. We're not willing to call them out. All we want to do is talk about it. It is time to call them out and do something about it. In St. Louis, let me say this, in St. Louis, they just call a group out. They call a group out, the rich, a group of white folks who actually control and make all decisions in the city, and they publish it in a newspaper. And that's the type of stuff we must do, not talk about it, but call them out and demand that we get those people out of the system.
Okay, and I'm sure that's what,
Let me just finish
Reverend
this,
James
and I'll let you go.
Turknick
Let me just say
was
this real
talking about.
quickly.
So go ahead, Kenny Hendrix, and then we're going to go
Yeah,
to
I'm just going to say this
Amos
real quickly.
Jones.
And I agree about demanding, but when we start demanding, we have to have something to bargain with. And we don't have anything to negotiate with, and that's what we need to do. But go ahead, Colette.
Okay, and let's go in order. Professor Jones wants to chime in on this, and then we must go to Theta Redwine. So
Yeah,
Professor,
I think it's very prudent to ask about how, at what point, at what level, to what extent, and under what conditions and preconditions we take over, frankly. Because many of these are majority Black cities still, though they're working on that too. And the fact of the matter is that
yes,
what's left of us.
yes, what's
Washington's
left
not
of us
majority
is
Black.
right.
My town's
Yes.
not majority Black anymore. It's about 44%.
Right.
We're a reality.
Yes,
And it's about 20% Hispanic, and the rest are white folk who are the fastest growing group of people in the city of Washington. What we have to, though, be completely prudent about is understanding what James Tucker was actually getting at when he said, and the city fathers who are behind this stuff too. Because what we do, we have allowed the rich left white people and the rich white right people too to actually divide the Black masses and the white working class and the white Christian folk. And they do it by scapegoating the low-hanging fruit. Police officers, white police officers are low-hanging fruit because they're white working class people, but they're like any other group of white people. 5 to 10% of them want us dead and to have nothing. The judges are the same way, the proportions are the same. The lawmakers, the executives, the law firm, Silicon Valley, Donald Trump's hotels pay Black people more and better in higher numbers than Silicon Valley liberal woke corporations that are so millennial liberal. They import H-1B immigrants from schools you've never heard of, who raise no issues in the workplace. I'm a labor and employment attorney for plaintiffs, for Black people, almost exclusively. And they bring these folk over with associate degrees from schools you never heard of, but won't hire brothers and sisters from Georgia Tech and MIT and North Carolina A&T. And then you look at who gets the stock options. And then we wonder why we're broke. And so the fact is, the police thing is very important because there is this tradition of Klansmen, including in Minneapolis, coming from Mississippi and LA, especially with Daryl Gates, and going out there causing all these problems and framing all these people. But that's what they do in the workplace too. That's what Karen was doing in Central Park when she tried to frame the Black bird watcher who filmed her.
right.
So we got these, we're being attacked everywhere. So we have to be, I like how James Tucker pulled it out and took it in a good white paper. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch is the one who exposed them. So, we need to understand that some of this attempt to make it all about police is a way to keep us out of the police forces, keep us from becoming police chiefs like Val Demings was a police chief. And there are a lot of really good Black police chiefs around there. There's some bad ones, but there are a lot of really good Black police chiefs and stuff, and they're making a difference. Community policing and everything like that. So I think that we're on the right track here. That's one of the best solutions. But I think we also need to prudently desegregate and cleanse and sanctify the police force and the city council.
Yes.
Thank you, James Turknet down in Dallas. And any other halls of power, which is the direction we were going in lockstep until the 80s. And my theory on the rap music, I'm not that much of a middle-aged man. I turn 44 tomorrow, but I'm to talk about this because I came along and I have a theory on that. I believe that where we went wrong, a lot of our teenage pregnancy and stuff happened in the 80s, and it hit me. Why? Because we got plugged up with a Walkman. Remember the Walkman? And what you put in will come out.
Yes, it will.
I had a relative who came down who grew up in Brooklyn. And I had never heard of Slick Rick and Kumo D because I was from Kentucky, in a small city in the western part. And they came to New York, and he was all plugged in, very cool person, and got all plugged up with this stuff. And then there were some issues later. But the fact is, if you put all that in your head that way, and it's all this like B's and H's, I won't say the words, but how we denigrate our sisters and all this stuff, then of course it's going to come out. So I think that that's part of what flipped us into then the crack thing came, and now we glorify a lot of this stuff a lot of low living, and a lot of this junk today isn't even music. You can't even classify what these guys, they have no
No.
musical training. I
None,
mean, you know,
none.
the days of Alicia Keys and John Legend are over. So, I mean, it's like, what are we doing here? It's not even aesthetically
Right.
good. You know, that they got it. They did. Y'all's parents didn't like Marvin Gaye because it was lascivious, but he could sing and write a song and get a hook though.
Absolutely.
But now we don't have it. Can't nobody
Yeah.
sing, can't nobody write no music, and
That's
can't
right.
nobody have no hook. It all sounds the
That's
same.
right.
And I'm not 75 with this lament. I'm 43 for now. So thank you all for bringing that all into it.
Yes,
And I do love the
absolutely.
young people, but you know, we're going to have to be critical about it too.
Yes, absolutely. So let me read something, a quote from James Baldwin, and this is to piggyback on what Dr. Zarif said. It is certain in any case that ignorance allied with power is the most ferocious enemy justice can have. Okay? And again, ignorance, and we see it. It is alive and well and flourishing. Ignorance. And we don't do anything to dispel the ignorance. Ignorance allied with power. I'm not going to go. I'm going to hand this over to Theta Redwine. Theta?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right.
Thank you.
So with this question, I would like for Mr. Jones to lead, but I am interested in hearing what the other gentlemen have to say. So rap artists recognize that the price of acknowledgement is controversy. The Facebook whistleblower has confirmed that the most extreme thought processes result in the biggest profit. What do you see as Facebook's responsibility for the highly detrimental posting, stories, and broadcasts that are resulting or fueling genocide?
Yeah, that's a tough, that's always a tough one. And I say that not to dodge at all. The reason it's tough is Facebook remains a private company. We operate as if Facebook is a public utility owned by the city. And we live in the city, and it's actually not. It's a private entity. And there's so much organizing power for what we do in groups like ours on Facebook, which are not to be made an equivalency with the bad that's going on out there, on the misinformation, disinformation, violence, all the suicides and things that have happened. Even revenge porn finds its way onto Facebook before they take it down. So what's their responsibility? What should be done? I think that they have a duty to police their community for crime at the very least. I think we all could agree on that. But I'm not so sure that we should lay at the feet of Instagram the fact that women are going on Slinky and giving adolescent girls body image problems. Because if you start to tinker with that, then suddenly you won't be able to tell Black men that maybe that COVID vaccine that one company has an effect on you that they didn't know about at first. Because they're going to come for that, because they always slap us first. You know, anytime they write any law or enforcement or whatever, it always goes to like the crack cocaine citizen disparities. It's always going to be over enforced against us, and then we're going to lose our opportunity. So the reason that I'm reluctant to go in on Facebook and to attach responsibilities to them beyond simple civic duty is that is used as a sledgehammer on Black organizing, because we already have a problem with that. I have a lot of Black, white, and international friends on Facebook. And I've been on Facebook not as long as a lot of people. I went on in 2008 when it started becoming a political tool for political campaigns and stuff. And even though it was invented when I was a college student, when I was a law student at Harvard, it was just for us at first. And I didn't touch Facebook because it seemed like a silly hookup site to me when it was just a campus thing. And then it spread all over the world. And I finally got in 5 years later in 2008. But here's what's important about understanding the power of Facebook. The only people I know who are ever in Facebook jail are Black people with liberationist perspectives that they put on Facebook. And I preface this by pointing out, I have a great cross-section of Facebook friends, and I know all 2,000 of my friends personally. They're not just, I don't just accept anything or friend anybody. So that's my reluctance. And it's important on ITRN when we talk about solutions that you get this kind of Black perspective. So I'm equivocating on how much to scapegoat Facebook, because I understand, the real problem is actually in the hearts of people. And I think the people most empowered to really help us all get to a beloved community, which is what we need in the world, are the clergy of various faiths. That's what I really think. And so I think that it's a question better put to the ministers and imams and rabbis and other groups. Why are our people half naked on here? And why are they cursing and doing that? How did this become socially acceptable in public, in our country at least? I think the questions should be put on them and on people's parents and not on Mark Zuckerberg. And I don't know Mark. That's my view. People can disagree, certainly.
You're on mute.
I don't
Go
think
ahead.
anybody is going to disagree with that. I think it has gotten out of control. In fact, I know it's out of control. I know it's out of control. I'm not a Facebook fan. I don't do Facebook, although I know that I should, because it's amazing how people have just created this, I don't know, they've become celebrities because they're on Facebook, and they're paid boatloads of money because they're on Facebook. They become famous for doing nothing, for talking on Facebook, which to me is mind-boggling. It's crazy. It's crazy. They become an influencer. We had a conversation yesterday, and I kept asking, what is an influencer? Somebody that goes on Facebook and talks crap and gets a whole lot of people to follow him or her. Really, people? We have lowered ourselves to that.
Yes, we
That
have.
is
Yes, we
that is to me, it is excruciating, ignorant, as Dr. Zarif has said. That is just ignorant. And we have relied upon a channel, a digital platform. Really, people? Really? There's no way.
I'm kind of siding with Professor Jones on that. It was like these platforms are microcosms of the real world.
Yes,
out
they
there.
are. Yeah.
And just like a few years ago, Craigslist took all of the sexy stuff off of there, the escorts and things, because women were getting raped and things like that. And even back then I
Craigslist.
said, it's not a Craigslist problem, it's just a societal problem.
Yeah, it is.
Because the ones that are doing that are going to move to some other platform. They're going to go and find it somewhere else. So Craigslist was not the problem. And I have the same feeling that Facebook in and of itself is not the problem. Facebook is a tool. All of these social media platforms are tools. A hammer is a tool, but if you hit somebody in the head, it's a weapon. Okay, so it depends on how you use it. And it has become weaponized in the hands of people who shouldn't be, frankly, be wielding these things, because it's gotten out of control. We suffered through without getting too political on here, we suffered through the worst 4 years I've ever seen from a political perspective, simply because of social media. Had that social media, specifically Twitter, not been around back in 2014, 15, those 4 years we would not have seen. That's the only reason that happened. Okay, so there's good and there's bad, and it's a tool, but it can be a weapon. So it's not necessarily on them. And the other side of that is that when she said they put profits over people, I'm sorry, but that's what corporations do.
That is exactly what corporations do. Profit over people, which brings us to another question. We are talking about it's time to tell the truth. Well, as I mentioned in the very beginning, the first segment was Black men in white coats. The second was Juneteenth, Tulsa, reparations, CRT. The third was COVID-19, the vaccine, profits over people, profits over people. And we still have millions of people who have not been vaccinated. I'm still on the fence, but there's still a question as to what the Black community is going to do in this case. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, James Turknett, Amos Jones, Dr. Zarif, Dr. Tucker, Theta Redwine, Tisa Turner, Kenny Hendrix. The Lieutenant Governor of Texas said that Black folks were responsible for not being vaccinated in the surge. Anybody remember that?
Mhm.
A few months
Definitely.
ago?
I
Yeah.
remember that.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
so where are the so-called freedom fighters? Where are
Right.
the people? Where are they?
Right.
Where are they? When he said that, all of us should have been in his face and slapping him around.
I definitely agree with you.
Okay, so
Mhm.
he had no right to make that kind of claim, but he
I agree
did,
with you.
and he did it comfortably.
He did it
didn't-
comfortably.
He did it comfortably because he knows BLM is over, and the rest of us are not going to say anything. So
Right.
he can say whatever he wants to say.
That's right. Ms.
Okay.
Colette, he did it comfortably. If I can share with you, he did
Sure,
it
go ahead.
comfortably in Texas, which is the state now. We have 1,000 people that move here a day in Dallas.
Yes,
Uh,
and they're here.
Most of the people that are moving here are Black people.
Yes.
We have more Black people in Texas than anywhere in America. And notice we've been open. We've just the governor passed a gun law. Anybody can just carry a gun. Don't have to be no license or whatever. Okay, these are kind of funny. These things are being done where all these Blacks are now coming. And so he did do that comfortable because, again, I reiterate the fact, and I appreciate Dr. James Tucker very well said about YOLO. You only live once. Professor Jones, excellent job. And everyone that is taking a part is going to take a coming together. As long as we as a whole don't come together. You remember grandmama would say, you got to ball up your fists to fight. You take that finger and you hit somebody, nobody's afraid of you because you're by yourself. We've got to come together. If we can't bring the younger generation, the middle-aged generation, and the older together, nobody's afraid of the Black people. And I know that the church has been the voice of the people, but the young people, the church is not the voice for them. It's hip hop, unfortunately. I'm a minister, very heavy, and I understand who the voice is. And we had to come together and tell the other ministers, let's be honest, you're not a prophet to the young people. I go to the schools, I talk to these young people. I mean, I go to a lot of schools. In my neighborhoods, I talk to these kids, they are out of control. I mean, I talk to them, I counsel these kids and deal with them. And their hip hop is the voice. They're not listening. The parents, the church has failed to make disciples. We were taught to go out and make disciples. Disciples are people, follower, learners. McDonald's took the understanding and they call them franchises. Network marketers, they call them network marketers. We don't have disciples in the church. So therefore, our children are just anybody. They are not disciplined. They are not discipled. And then we have fighting amongst the older people. And until we can join together, unite, and get in prayer and really get a relationship and get on one accord, there will be no change. As long as we are fighting and not uniting and trying to get our religion to be number one, there will not be no change.
Right.
The hell with religion. Let's have a relationship and love one another. Let's work together and show the young people that we can get along and communicate and we're intelligent. And that's where we've got to start from there, my point of view. And I thank Ms. Redwine for saying that, yeah, Facebook is not responsible. They keep me on, jail. So I stopped doing my lives because I would come on and we'd have 1,000 people on and Facebook just put me in jail. And I don't know if they mess with the algorithms. I'm not sure. Where people said, I'm trying to get on, but I can't get on. I said, it's Facebook. Don't worry about it. They're trying to hinder. I'm a Democratic chair in the party. The Democratic Party is a part of the problem. They're not for the Blacks like they should. They're for the LGBTQ and the Hispanics.
Oh, Don't get me
They
started.
use the civil rights movement and they use the money
Don't get me started.
to put toward the LGBT and toward other people that didn't come to Black people. I know I'm in the mix. I'm not saying I'm the all-knowing. I'm not. I'm just serving. And if I sound strong, don't take it personal. I'm just tired. My mind is tired. I got to get ready. I got to get ready to go hit it in a minute. And then I got to get out and see what I'm going to tell these youth this week, because they need a revelation from a prophet who's trying to make a change. And that's all I'm talking about.
Yes,
Thank you.
And I agree with you 100%. And the difference between the LGBTQ, XYZ community and the Hispanics and the Asians and everybody else, they have their own economic base.
Mhm.
And they have something to bargain with. We spend $1.3 trillion a year. Black people spend $1.3 trillion a year in this country. And to date, we still have not figured out how to flex our economic muscle. And therein lies the problem. We could fix, if we knew how to flex our economic muscle, we could get the problems with the police fixed. We could get the problems with those things fixed. We could fix these problems, but we keep going and we want to demand things, but we don't bring the necessary things to the table. You know, we talk about Black Lives Matter on their website, and they finally got rid of it. On their website a couple of years ago, they had a list of demands. You know who has lists of demands? Kidnappers and terrorists. And why do they have lists of demands? Because they have something that the powers that be want or need. When they've kidnapped your kids, they want $1 million, you got $1 million, you're going to pay the $1 million. That's who does that. And the other thing is that the list of demands was 60 bullet points long.
They're not going to look at that or read that. They don't
60
even
bullet
care.
points long. That's
They don't even-
absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
You
they
know,
don't
so
even care.
we have to understand our economic power. And when we go, you know, we have to have a clear and concise message. And I think
Right.
that's what's lacking. We don't have a clear and concise message. Walking down the street with a sign that says, when you're protesting the police, when you got a sign that says, stop shooting us, the police are not going to look at that sign and go, oh, well, why didn't you tell us in the first place?
Right.
It's not going to happen.
And the protests now are simply activities. They're ready for them. It's simply an
Entertainment.
activity, entertainment.
Yes.
It's just entertainment. They mean
Yes.
absolutely nothing. It's simply entertainment. I'm going to go to Theta Redwine,
Eh.
Dr. Zarif,
Okay.
Amos Jones, and James Turkneck, and I think Dr. Tucker. So let's go to Theta Redwine first, and then Dr. Zarif. Go ahead.
I wanted to, just share a little something with Mr. Turknet as regards Facebook and Facebook jail. And that is, I recently learned that it is one of the primary weapons for politicians. And since you are running for office, that would explain that. And that the opposition simply needs to flood Facebook with complaints. And once they get a certain amount, they shut it down. So that might be something worth looking into so you can kind of be ready. Now, I understand that from a political perspective, that they also look to see what you have posted that you will be speaking on so that they can flood it either right after you start or before you can start so that it throws your whole schedule off. So, hey, word to the wise.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Zarif.
You know, I'm really enjoying this. However, this is just my feedback is that with all of our brilliant minds, we have to remind ourselves to make sure that we're speaking about the antidote. You know, what do we do despite all of this stuff happening? We are so engaged in the emotion of it. We can do exactly what we're talking about. They got us here in the first place, and that we can be enraged. We're ready to kick behind. We just, that's so wrong. We never ever took time to bereave. So I think that there's a lot of that's happening. And that's why we have such an escalation of mental illness, because we haven't taken proper time to heal. So with what we're talking about as a group, I think that it gets back to that word organization, which includes mental wellness, which includes letting a person know the wonderful attributes of his or herself. That got to be the worst, the most horrible disease on the planet is low self-esteem. When a person doesn't have any personal value, they feel like, what is their worth, their life worth? And it also increases the chance of them killing someone or being killed, because it's like, what do I have to lose? And that's what Malcolm X talked about. The most dangerous man on the world is one who feels that he has nothing to lose. So
right.
what we need to do, I think with all of this, I would love to be in contact with what I've done. I'm just gonna say what I've done so far, just to give you an idea. There's a lot of brothers. When I was traveling, I just finished up my book signing tour. And one of the things that in every city I went in, I've met all of these incredible brothers and sisters. But one thing they had in common, overweight, obesity, still eating slave food, still, addicted to sugar, salt, and fat. Everybody had that same thing. I'm like, we need to do something about this, because they had jokes already placed, ready to, sarcasm and all of the sardonic approaches to their problems. People love to hear good news about their bad habits. So when they didn't hear that, they wanted, well, what do you suggest? I suggested this, that each community around the United States, if we can start with a small community group, it can be in a small church, a gym, I don't care, wherever. But if we get people that will stand on one accord, and I'm not talking about the little stuff, I'm talking about the big things, the things that we need to protect our children, not to live in a food desert, on and on. I think that they would do well, because we've already started 6 different groups from North Carolina to Chicago. We got it in Detroit. That's where I'm from. And we started these groups, and it's just a phone call. Now we got all of these guys that weren't working out a couple of weeks ago. They're mad about keeping themselves in shape. So I'm saying that, again, we have to start with us. Start with the individual, and then that way we can reach out, because those children that we're talking about that are hip hop artists and so forth, guess what they do acknowledge? They acknowledge people that set great examples. That's what they acknowledge. So if you come in there and you doing what they want to do, they're going to give you all the attention in the world. But if you look ill, if you're not, looking like you've been taking care of yourself, if you're not talking to the brother next to you with respect, or you're saying things behind that person's back and all of those kinds of things, then of course they're copying off of us. So we need to come together, get on these layers, and then work from that point up.
Thank you very much. Dr. James Tucker, do you have a comment?
All right. We're all over the place talking about different things. I'd just like to say, it's up to us to create a plan of action.
Yeah.
And we also need to create, just from this group, we need to get to know each other. We need to create a media policy so we can create our own message. And that message will be the message that for our people, because we're the conscious people that should be spreading our message. And also, I'd like to make one other statement. The white folks are afraid of us. How do I know? Because I live in St. Louis now. I've lived in Colorado, and I came back to St. Louis during the Ferguson uprising. And I'm a tall, handsome black man. And I just went in Walmart to buy some batteries. And of course, they arrested me for trespass, and they stacked all kinds of charges on me. And I had to come back to and from St. Louis on numerous occasions to court. Had a lawyer who sold me out. But I went through all that, and then finally I took a plea bargain because I was giving the courts all my money. And of course, they couldn't do anything to me. I didn't go to jail. But I said, I'll say this. The Europeans are afraid of black men. Why did I say that? Because we live in a police state. How do I know? Because I'm on the street. And anytime we have any type of demonstration, protest, or anything like that, they're going to bring the cops out, armored trucks, and everything else. And they will put you down. And they are afraid of us. And that's been my experience in the street.
And I don't believe, and I haven't seen it. I think that they meaning the so-called police force, they do have a thing about Black men. I don't know if it's fear. I don't know if it's intimidation. I think it's probably both. And there's no excuse for what happens between Black men and the police force. There's no excuse. There's no way to justify it. There's no way to even find a way to rationalize what happens. Now, having said that, I came up in a time when Black folks were feared. I came up in the 60s. Black folks at that time were feared. That's why the Black Panther Party was feared. We lived in an area where the Black Panthers in Los Angeles were feared heavily, heavily. But they were actually doing something. They had a cohesive party. They had a cohesive plan. They knew exactly where they were going and what they were doing and who was a part of that. The Black Panthers were not about somebody else telling them what they should and shouldn't do. And all of a sudden, the Black Panthers are gone.
Remember, they changed the gun laws in California
Yes,
because of the Black
because
Panthers.
of the Black
and
Panthers.
I think it was
Yes.
Reverend Turknet brought up the guns. And again, I just want to throw this in here real quickly. I encourage all Black men, and if you can, based on the state and the municipality, and to arm yourself, because we had, I've got this saying, 2A for me too, and to walk around unarmed in these days. I know it's different for us. I'm not naive enough to think they're going to treat us the same way that they treat everybody else. I know about Philando Castile. I know these things happen, but you have to be very, very careful. And those of us in a state where we have constitutional carry, I still say go get your license, because that's going to put you in a different light.
Yes.
So, but again, walking, because we are, and I've said this on the show before, we are one lie away from another Greenwood. And
Yes.
Dr. Tucker, I know you're heavy, you're big, you're part of your organization in Greenwood. We are one big lie away from that. If those people could breach the Capitol of the United States
Then what
based
could they
on
do? That's right.
any thinking
Based on a
person
lie.
knew that those were lies. If they could breach the
Right.
Capitol of the United States based on that lie,
What can they, there's nothing that they can't do.
Yeah.
There's nothing that they can't do. Let's go to Theta, please. Theta Redwine.
Yes, I just wanted to comment that Dallas College, which is where I teach, previously had African American Male Initiative, and it was specifically because of the very small number of Black men who were completing their certificates or getting their associate's degrees. They've now changed that to just Male Initiative. Well, I had seen what they were doing, but I didn't think it was enough, and I begged. And last week they let me prepare a presentation and bring in PNC Bank, a loan officer, and an insurance agent. And the topic was what I wish I knew about credit. And that gave me the forum I needed, because I explained to them that you want to do business with people who want to do business with you. And that's one of the things that I think our Black men really need to know, that I explained what the Clue report is and how every time they get a ticket, they shouldn't be paying the tickets. You need to pay an attorney to get it off. All of the things that I teach, I do Black male coaching for real. I mean, like no money. It's just young Black men that have come in my life from one point or the other because they need that direction and guidance. I can't give them what you guys could give them, from male on man, but I can give them the business portion and let them know that as Black men, their failure to progress has nothing to do with something they've done wrong. It's just a matter of not knowing what their options are and just helping them. One of the young men and they were all, several things you said were on point, because I was shocked at just how participatory they were. And one of the young men who was particularly impressive afterwards came to me and said, so, are you doing this every week? And why do you do this? And I was surprised that they said, why are you doing this? Because they also wanted to know, how did I know these other people? So the whole concept of networking, they don't get that, because in their world, it's not happening. But that being said, I asked this young man, What was he studying? He said, international languages. I said, what's the dream job? And he said, I don't know. So that's how we're failing. So there's no one for him to talk. What happens if you're in an environment where you're the first to finish high school, more or less to go to college? So I like that the college is providing that. They're not getting the participation we would like, but I know why they're not. Because focus, which is why should I come to that meeting? Why should I join? It's not there. And we have to come on strong. But I'm grateful because as a woman, they want to be an all male thing. But at the end of the day, we better get it from wherever we can get it from. So whoever that is, whatever color that person is, that can give us. So there's on my advisory board, I have a white law firm that specializes in what's called debt negotiation, which means, yes, that's my debt. Yes, I didn't pay my bills. And yes, I'm screwed now because my interest rate on my car and house sucks. Once they know this is where you go and this is how it worked out, then they have hope. So I'm down. Everything you guys said is like so on point. But I think it's important that we go ahead and we need to join arms with the commercial entities that have the power that you guys talked about. Because a lot of them have reasons they have to participate, but the banks, because of the community reinvestment program, because they're in trouble. So let's take advantage of it.
Right. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I look at LinkedIn, and on LinkedIn, there are tons of people who are saying congratulations to those who've just been either promoted or brought into a new position, which is diversity and inclusion, which is another one, affirmative action, or positions that are inclusive of supposedly everybody. Well, this didn't happen until post 2020. So between 2020 and 2021, there is a mass hiring of Black folks in these positions, diversity and inclusion. And I think that Black folks should be pissed off. Once again, we've been passed over, looked over, and uninvited to the table. But all of a sudden, because of 2020, we've now been invited to work in these positions as the Director of Diversity and Inclusion. What happened before that? Where we were there. We were there. So what happened before that? There's now all of a sudden diversity and inclusion. Now there's another push for people to become certified. I want to get business to this network. I've got to certify that I am a Black woman, that I am a Black business owner, that I am telling the truth about who I am, what I am, and why I am. And I have people say to me all the time, well, you know what, you're right. I'm working on that right now, and that document is this thick. Really? And that's okay. That, again, is okay. That's our narrative. And we'll take it. It doesn't really matter who it comes from. We'll take it as long as we get the crumbs, because that's what it really, really equates to. It becomes the crumbs. I started going through this back in the 70s. I know what that's all about. But for us, it's something that we absolutely must do. We need to fill out that document. We need to certify that we're Black folks seeking more business.
I just want to interject. Sorry to cut you off there. Go ahead.
That's okay. That's okay. No, go ahead. I'm done.
All right. I just wanted to mention, because I'm in the Hispanic Contractors Association on purpose, because they have the best of contracts and the best opportunities, because
Yes.
businesses recognize that's where the money is. That being said, during President Obama's administration, one of the wonderful things he did is he made it difficult. And with the contractors, he started sending out to the job, for example, on highways. Now, we have the big infrastructure bill, but he would send out entities to verify VIN numbers on the vehicles to ensure they were actually associated with the Black contractors on records. And he would go to the banks and have them pull the bank cards to verify that the Black person who was supposedly the owner had signing power, which they did not, and the vehicles were not in their name. The gig was up, and there were many, many companies that was the end of their major contracts because they just had front men. So when you talk about, the crumbs, there is a problem. And, just recognize that, at least under President Obama, of course, a lot of that has been undone. But at the end of the day, it was an attempt to make sure that we truly had a seat at the table.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we're still seeking a seat at the table. Just because there is an inclusion and diversity division does not mean the seat at the table is ours. That's not what that means.
I agree.
Okay, so we're still fighting that war, but we're ready to take whatever they give us.
Sister Williams, one thing I say about diversity and inclusion, and I tell them in their presence, I let them know that number one, diversity and inclusion does not include us. People benefiting from diversity and inclusion are the white females and the gays and
That's right.
lesbians. And so therefore, it's an insult for them to tell me that we believe in diversity and inclusion. I don't accept that. And of course, when I bring it to their attention, they don't like it, but I make it known that I'm a Black man. What are you doing for Black folks?
Right. James Turkneck, Amos Jones, and we're going to go to the summary in just a few minutes. So James Turkneck and then Amos Jones.
Yes, I totally agree with everything that was said right there. And quickly, when I found out why Blacks all over the world are in a situation that the world is set up on 8 points of economics, and America has 5 of the points, and Europe and the Western society has 2. The other point is to the rest of America. So Haiti and all of the other people are not able to be trading. Haiti went to McDonald's wanting them to check out their beef. Their beef was better, but they said, yeah, your beef's better, but we're not going to buy it. They don't have anybody to buy they can't trade. They can't get up. In 1948, under the Eisenhower administration, Black people was given a piece of the pie. Hey, that's a slice of pie. Since 1948 to now, the pie is no longer big, even though we have billionaires. It's because they've thrown every group in the pie. The women's liberation was thrown in the pie, the Middle Easterns. And so what happens is America set up the white male is 100% of white female, 50%, all other races, including the Black woman, is 33%. The Black male is 0. That's why it's important for the Black men to come together. Well, we disagree, but we got to learn to come together. And so Bill Clinton's administration tried to get all of the white people to become all the white men to become minorities. He failed, but he did get approved for all female to become minorities. So most of the contracts, 67% in America, are going to white females. And we need 8A certifications so that we can start getting money that should be allocated to Black families. We have to get this money, and we have to get those with money to begin to share and educate our community. And we have to pull together, become one.
And we have to certify, which again, I don't like that vehicle. I didn't like it back then, and I don't like it today.
Mm-hmm.
So, but let's go to Amos Jones, please. Oh, Professor.
Yes. Thank you. I was just doing some quick research to make sure I would get it right. When you talk globally, it's the same oppression manifested on Black people, because there are way fewer than 1% of the world's billionaires are Black, despite the incredible mineral resources of Africa and the Caribbean with certain things they have. It hit me as a scholar of Black lawyers and lawyering, and I taught a course for 7 years called The History of the Black American Lawyer when I was a full-time professor in North Carolina at 2 law schools, a very white one and a very Black one. And it was a very popular course, ironically, at the white one. And I taught about Reginald Lewis, and because he was a business mogul way early on. And I think he was the richest Black man in the world. Now, by the mid-90s, there were only 14 billionaires in the whole world. There's been a huge proliferation of more and more money exponentially, as we would expect. To now there may be 3,000 billionaires as opposed to just 14. He was not a billionaire. His company was a $1 billion company, Reginald Lewis, but he wasn't. Today he would have been a billionaire, I think. But it occurred to me just thinking just yesterday about this show and about how bad off we are and what the world what the oppressors around the world do and how they keep it going. Reginald Lewis could not exist today and have a multinational conglomerate that he ran as a Black man with factories making ice cream and everything else in Italy and dealing with unions and all that, because they would all know that he was Black because of social media and the internet, and they would make sure that it would not happen for him. You could not have a Reginald Lewis today because a Black man or woman is not supposed to have. The billionaires we do have, Bob Johnson has his $1 billion from BET, a little network in America. That's nothing like what Bloomberg was allowed to do to get $40 billion as a working class kid from Boston. And it happens all the time for everybody but Black people, including Black people who own the mineral reserves in Nigeria. And now there are a few oil people with some real industrial money. At least one of the Africans did corruption the right way. There's a woman from one of those countries who made the white companies doing business in her country give her equity in the company. So she became a billionaire, and at least she was smart enough to at least get it corruptly. But we sell ourselves short even when we're doing corruption. And so the fact of the matter is, though, it's set up, and Reginald Lewis had to work very hard. That's how I got brain cancer and died at the age of 50 in 1993. On the eve of Bill Clinton's inauguration, because they he would get to the settlement table for the smaller deals before he got big, and they would suddenly not want to do the deal in the end, and it would fall apart. Yeah. So he was one of the earliest people who realized, well, I'm a lawyer. I can be the lawyer for a company that they don't realize is my company. Beatrice, TLC stood for the Lewis Company.
Beatrice Foods, right.
But the TLC in front of it stood for the Lewis Companies. Many people never knew that. But you have to do it a different way, which brings me to what I try to do, and what we were talking about, Kenny Hendrix, with folks, not just having a list of 60 demands, but actually doing something with them. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has and it never will, said Frederick Douglass. Right. That was true. We give it up. Look, collective, we really can't compare to any group when it comes to money. We're broke in the collective, everybody. We don't have a darn thing. In the collective. We have barely 1.3 million people worth $1 million or more, and that includes the family home. Well, you take out DC and New York, where everybody's house is at least 600,000 or more. We don't have anything. So the fact of the matter is, what do? We have to boycott. That's why they had to shoot Dr. King in the face. When we withhold, especially those areas where we spend a lot of money, like women, Black women consuming 36% of all hair care and beauty supplies. Now, I'm not saying y'all don't look pretty and take off but I am saying, we might want to do something a little different. Let me also say that what I do, we've talked about what we do, when I bring a civil action against an organization or government agency, I immediately try to publicize what's going on, because where there's smoke, there's fire. And you get way more people, and they'll never let a Black man do a class action ever. I've tried that over and over. Yeah. They never let you do it because the white lawyers are supposed to get all that money. Class action lead plaintiffs don't get any money. The white lawyers have that, inferior white lawyers get all the class action money, including the overdraft fee cases, when that's our money the bank stole. I was in one of those as a lead DC plaintiff, and I had to go against my own lawyers at the end and hold up the settlement. And I tried to hold it up for all the Black people, but couldn't get anybody to cooperate with me, from the DC Council to ADOS. I tried to get a grassroots movement to get 50 million for our movements out of that money, because we found that TD Bank stole $570 million from people with fake overdraft fees. And the white lawyers settled it for 70 million, and they got their 23 million. I was the sole lead DC plaintiff because they did it to my law firm with the fake overdraft fees. And I went to the firms came back to me to bring the case, and in DC. So I had this golden chip, and I alone had to walk down to the South Carolina federal courthouse, and object. And all I got was $55,000 for me personally, instead of the $10,000 that the white lawyers were trying to fork over to me. And that was pulling teeth. It was an all white thing in the courthouse on both sides. So we have to understand where the real money is and why we're being cheated out of it, and start withholding and doing systematic disruptions. This Washington depends on Black people up in here to park the cars, to wash the cars, to be the secretary, to be the receptionist. If they all didn't show up for 2 weeks and the churches took up mission offerings and covered it and demanded better treatment, we would, the ministers would be better than the D&I Black woman head fake that they trot out for window dressing. The ministers would be the real DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. That's the DEI. And isn't that, think about what that is like, DEI, and it ain't nothing but ungodly because they're tricking us again.
Yes.
It should not be diverse. It should be the Office of Black Inclusion, because we're the reason they have to do any of this.
That's right.
And we're the ones
Absolutely.
who made it safer, and we're the ones being left out.
That's
And we're
right.
the ones who are entitled to remedies, cash, jobs, scholarships, everything, land.
That's right.
It was an AME pastor, if you watch Henry Louis Gates's Black Church series, that I thought was not that good, but it was good enough. But I really like that Henry Louis Gates made very clear 40 acres and a mule came from an AME minister who told, I think the head of the Freedmen's Bureau, it came from the battlefield, but it was an AME minister who said what the colored family needs after slavery is land. And he
That's
understood
right.
it in that economy,
right.
why you need land.
And we still
That's
don't have
right.
any.
And
We still don't have, but we needed land then, because land, you control it. Your family is safe
That's
on
right.
it. You
That's
can
right.
build food, you can build a house on it, and you can have food that you create on
Right.
that land.
And that's too much control. That's entirely too much control. And
But it's amazing.
that's
that
right.
We got some land, some people, but a lot of people didn't. But the point being that why did an AME pastor in 1865 understand our predicament better than DEI Black women? Because they always make it a Black woman, because you can get
Yes.
preferably a lesbian, because you get more bang for your buck.
Yes.
You can trek 3 boxes and throw her in a wheelchair.
That's
You're
right.
home, you get 4 diversity points
That's
instead
right.
of 1. So that's why the
That's-
brothers ain't
that's
ever.
exactly
Oh, I
what
know
it
what
is.
they're doing. I'm an
That's
employment lawyer.
exactly what it
I
is.
know, I know the formula. I know the
That's
formula.
right.
And
That's
so I just
exactly
want to
what it
say
is.
what they're doing as well.
That's
The
right.
LGBT, what they did, they went and made the Supreme Court alter the Civil Rights Act to add them into it when they're not in it.
Right.
You're supposed to go to
That's
the
right.
legislature like we did. That's why those girls died in 63 Baptist Church. The girls died in 63 Baptist Church so we would get the Civil Rights Act of 64. That's what the Birmingham campaign, they knew that people were going to die in Birmingham.
Yeah,
And
they did.
they knew that would make Johnson sign the Civil Rights Act of 64, which is where the EEOC came from. So what the Negroes on the TV didn't want you to know is that was one of the worst decisions, because we all know the EEOC doesn't work for us anymore anyway.
Been
If
that
you go
way
on
for
their
50
website,
years.
they
That's right.
promote every case they bring, and they bring it for everybody but Black people. And yet
Right.
Dr. Martin Luther King died for us to have, and a bunch of other people, for us to have it. That's our office. But you
Yes,
get a white
absolutely.
investigator,
That's
you get a
right.
white intake person, or
That's
scare
right.
Black people because we're so financially neutralized. Now we don't have what we had in the 60s. In the 60s, even a Black doctor still lived in the ghetto. He just had a nicer house. So we
Okay.
owned our homes free and clear. We were not paying $100,000 in student loan debt, and you did not have to pay all this money in healthcare costs in the 60s. We could afford to protest. You could
Okay.
tell them where to go on that
Okay.
job, because
And
you had
that's-
a secure community. You knew that you should carry a gun before we got punked by the white left telling us not to have a gun.
Exactly.
I'm from the South. What kind of a fool in America? A Black man unarmed. How stupid.
That's right.
What kind
Okay.
of
And that's
stupidity.
and that's
When we
exactly
fought this,
Agreed.
That's
everybody understands that this is America, self-help, the gun.
okay.
So the
And
fact
that's
of the matter is, Shirley Sherrod's family, remember Shirley Sherrod, that Breitbart racistically tried to take out in Shisu? Her family beat back the Klan on their land. There was a Klan advance, and they went out there armed, and they were respected, and they saved themselves. You can't tell me that Black people should not have self-defense. So the fact of the matter is, I try to collectivize this stuff, but you have to disrupt, and also the boycott. Last point, this is very actionable, and I hope that I haven't raised this one thing in the past, because it's a great idea. It might have been somewhere else as well, but we as Black people, this is the last point I want to make. We have conventions every summer. And we all agree, the Black engineers, the Black lawyers, the Black National, and I'll name them, National Society of Black Engineers,
Yes, that's
National
right.
Bar Association,
That's right.
National Medical Association, the
Yes, we do.
Alphas, the Deltas, the Omegas, the
Yes, we
Progressive
do.
National Baptist
Yes,
Committee,
we
the
do.
AME Church, the
Black
AME
journalists.
Lion Church, the CME Church, the NABJ, National Association of
Yes, that's
Black
right.
Black Mortgage, and we all go and have the same discussions, putting our money in white hotels, white airlines, white cruises,
Every
white,
single time.
white
Every single
bars,
time. That's right.
all
Every
of that
single
money,
time.
billions every
Every
so often,
single time.
every summer into a bunch of white hands.
Every
Talk
single
about
time.
that same stuff we've been talking about since Dr. King got shot.
Thank you.
We need to
That's right.
stop having these conventions, do it on Zoom,
And
pull
get
that
and see
money
what they do. That's
and
right.
see what they do without,
And
because
see
we
what they
know
do.
how to,
That's right.
because we know how to
That's
as E. Franklin Frazier said, the Negro's love of leisure is legendary. So we know how to do a convention
Okay.
at the,
Okay.
you know, and to have the dance at
That's
the
right.
end with the expensive DJ. Oh, I know. And so we need to stop this, take that money, hold it, make them provide low interest loans and grants. So we have our own hotel chains and airlines, an airline or two, things that every other group in the world gets to have that Black people don't have, and get this thing straightened out by withholding our doing collective
Absolutely.
and collective inaction at the same
Absolutely.
time.
That's
And
right.
that's that bargaining power, having that
Right.
economic
That's
And
power
the
bargaining power.
collective.
and understanding and having
right.
that collective being able to bargain with that. Because if you do that, the phone will start ringing. This is the Hyatt. You guys aren't coming this year.
Yeah, yeah, that's
You know,
right.
the next
That's
phone rings again.
absolutely a fact.
This is Hilton Hotel. You guys aren't coming this year.
Right.
We're not getting your money this year.
Yeah.
And that starts
That's
to sink in after a while.
absolutely a fact. That's
Absolutely.
absolutely a fact. And we have a someone here on ITRN. His name is Roderick Gaines. He tried to start an airline, but he could not get Black folks to back him.
I
He
hate to be the
could not
bearer.
get Black folks to back him. He struggled and struggled and struggled. He could not get Black folks to back him. Now, how many of you on this panel know that Bob Johnson owns Hilton's? How many of you know that?
I knew
Bob
that.
Johnson.
Just
Okay.
FYI,
He
I
owned
hate
one
to be-
Colorado
I hate to be a
Springs.
bad
Those
guy,
are
but
basically
we got
licensed.
10 minutes left.
I
Okay.
didn't know that. I didn't know that, Cole.
Yeah,
All
Bob
of those are
Johnson.
licensed. Mhm.
Bob Johnson
Didn't know that.
stepped away. Yes, stepped away, took his break from BET and owns a couple of Hilton hotels. Okay. There are several folks that own major hotels, but these are things that we don't know. We don't talk about. These are things that you can't put out there.
Mhm.
Okay. You cannot put them out there because Black folks might go there. They might, or they'll continue to do what we always have done. And we're out of time. We've got just a few minutes left, and I want to, our summary is going to come at a different time. But I do want to get I want to get a 45-second closing statement from everybody, but I want you to know this. This is part of what we're doing. It's time to tell the truth, and we've been telling the truth all evening. And time goes by so fast, especially when you're talking about truth. This is a quote from James Baldwin again. When we cannot tell our truth about our history, we become trapped in it. And that's where we are. James Baldwin. When we cannot tell the truth, our truth about our history, our past, we become trapped in it. And it looks like we are trapped in it. We're trapped in it. So I'd like to go to Dr. Zarif real quick. Dr. Zarif, any closing statement, anything that you would like to say?
Well, first I would like to say I appreciate everybody taking time. I really enjoyed you brothers and sisters. So I thank you very much. I will be in contact with those of you that I have your number. I put my number there in the chat so that you can stay in contact, because I really want to do something about all of this energy. You know, we can definitely do some positive things. I'm a hard worker, and I have already started some of the things that I talked about. So I look forward to speaking with you all in the future.
Thank you. Dr. James Tucker.
I'm gonna be short. I think we should support Attorney Amos Jones, and it's time for action. We need to, you guys welcome come to St. Louis, and we could come here and put together a plan of action and make it happen.
Great, great. And Reverend James Turknick.
Yes, I'm excited that we had the opportunity to get everyone together, and it was tremendous. Dr. Zarif and everyone, Professor Jones, all you guys, Dr. Tucker, enjoyed, and Coach Redwine, awesome. I love to meet with you all because I'm very open-minded, and I think this is our time. And I say this quickly, what the white people are afraid of, we have a movement called the Third Day prophetically. And it means as Christ rose, he's going to raise up the Black people to be the eyes to bring all people together and usher in the coming of the Lord. And they're afraid of dispensation as fell upon us. So they're afraid of us to wake up and join hands. As long as we arguing with each other, they know we're not going to do it. It's our time. Let's take it by force. Ugh.
Absolutely. And Professor Amos Jones.
This I'm going to call it a movement toward starting with the truth, with a diversity of experience and communities that we have here on this panel. Everybody is outstanding, extremely competent, equipped, and positioned from coast to coast to help get this thing straightened out. And I like the idea of systematizing this, harmonizing and synchronizing so that we can, in our communities and on up, lead. And if the political process is so important, the formal political process with elected officials, that is vitally important. And so if we can just continue in an action and to concretize what we have come up with in these 5 sessions. And I thank ITRN. Independent Black media is essential. And they say the revolution will not be televised. Black truth will not be mass produced.
Yes.
So it's our job also to disseminate this material that you all have produced so excellently. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. And you're right. Black truth will be told. We will not be silenced. We will not be silenced. Theta Redwine. There. Okay.
Muted. Redwine is muted.
Okay.
There we go. There
There
we
you
go. No, I think the gentleman have summed it up. I'm looking forward to more conversation.
Great. Thank you. And Leonard Collins. You're muted, Leonard. You're still muted. Okay.
Yeah. I'm just in awe, to be honest with you. Kenny, Yolanda, you guys have clearly been the foundation. And what we're trying to do, you could see it now coming to fruition. We have some of the greatest minds on this call. And as I always talk to my wife, I always say there's so much greatness in us, and I never understand why we don't have the results that we deserve. However, I will say my favorite saying is everything that everybody said, what it boils down to is cultural collectivity. Once we have the cultural collectivity, we all think the same. See, Hispanics, they think the same. Asians, they think the same. Armenian, they think the same. Now, we know why we think the same. We just have to resolve it. But the panel and the people on this show, you have the ability to solve it and make a new day. So I'm just in awe. I can't even, I'm almost at tears. This is the best show thus far. And I've been with you for 5 years. Peace.
Wow.
Yes, well, thank you so much. And it has been a pleasure to have all of you, your brilliant minds.
Thank you.
We never get enough. We never get enough. And this is one of those times when we need at least another 2 hours, but I know we can't do that. So we are going to bring you back, and we do have a few others that we're going to add to this panel. But this has been a night for a call to action. This has been an evening where we wanted to call all you brilliant minds together to create a call to action. We can no longer rest on our laurels or rest and think that somebody else is going to do it for us. We have got to unite. We've got to rebuild. We have to refocus. We have to revitalize. We have to reposition. We have to repair the damage that has been done. It's up to us. We cannot allow or stop and think that somebody else is going to do it for us. And Kenny Hendrix always talks about the woman who was at the center in Houston during Katrina when they interviewed her, and she said, and they asked what she was doing, and she says, well, they brought us down here and they didn't tell us what to do. No, they didn't tell us what to do. And my daughter lived directly across the street from that area where they housed all of those people, thousands of people during Katrina. They just put them there.
You won't
in
hear anybody
that-
else say that.
Right. You
Go
won't
ahead.
hear anybody.
They
but
told
they
us to
took
come
those
down here and
people.
then they didn't tell us what to do.
Then they didn't tell us what to do. And it's unfortunate. Here it is again. Here it is again. The Haitians, here it is again with the recent hurricane in Louisiana. Still waiting for somebody to tell them what to do. Still waiting. I watched those people. They're still waiting for somebody to tell them what to do. And it's unfortunate that here it is 2021, 22, and we're still waiting for someone to do it for us, to rebuild for us. What are we waiting for? Los Angeles, the riot took place in 1992. 1992. Here it is, 2022. And they're still waiting for LA to be rebuilt. And Zarif, you're there in LA and you see that. They're still waiting to be rebuilt. We're out of time. We are out of time. I turned 69 a month ago. We're out of time. We are out of time. We should have seen so much more, so much more. And with that, again, I want to thank you all for being with us. The pleasure is always ours. Kenny Hendrix and I thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being here and being there when we need you to be there. Thank you so very, very much. We will continue this path. And you know what? With your help, we're going to get there. And I'm knocking on doors to say, look, this is a media group like none other. This is the media group. We're going to tell the truth. We're going to tell the truth to the community. So thank you so much for being with us. I will talk with all of you very soon, and we will have a show to summarize what we've done. So thank you so much. We've got shows tomorrow and next week. Be with us
I
then.
know.
Good night, everybody. Take care.
Night.
And yes, you have been listening to Intentional